Were you aware that the daily COVID-19 death rate figures the MSM have been shrieking about aren't true, that they are in fact an out-and-out lie? And you really don't need to be a conspiracy theorist to realise something isn't quite right about pretty much everything to do with COVID-19, because the reality on the ground simply doesn't match the hysteria spewed out by the perverse mainstream media, whose motives for their deranged, dishonest, fantastical and astonishingly unprofessional behaviour I've yet to fully understand. But one thing I do understand, though, is that they're lying to us on a massive scale. Take a look at the daily COVID-19 death rates for April the 25th, published by the Daily Mail, which ran these shock horror headlines every day for week after week. And the description for this graphic clearly states, quote, "number of deaths per day in the UK," end quote. Leading one to believe, quite naturally, that the figures specifically relate to the real number of deaths on that specific day. And the number given for April the 25th was 843 deaths in the UK, 711 of which occurred in England. But when I looked at the NHS daily figures, though, I discovered there were only 150 deaths listed for that day, which seemed a little odd, to put it mildly. And that figure then changed over the following few days, which confused me. So I did some digging and discovered this little gem of information about April the 25th COVID death rates from the Oxford University's Centre for Evidence-Based Medicine, or CEBM, which I've highlighted in yellow. Quote, "Today's reported figure is 711 deaths in hospitals in England. These deaths are distributed back to the 11th of March. Of the 711 deaths, 468 occurred in the last 7 days, and 225 deaths occurred between the 11th of March and the 17th of April. This is the second day we have seen an increase in the number of deaths reported that occurred over a week ago, the majority of which occurred over 2 weeks ago. We do not know the reason for this," end quote. Well, I think I know the reason. And the Daily Mail, rather than investigating this monumental peculiarity, is instead swallowing it whole and then deliberately lying in order to deliberately terrorise us into compliance. And it's not just April the 25th they're lying about, it's every day. Here's a graph for the CEBM for the 15th of April, which the Mail fraudulently claimed to be over 800 daily deaths, but in reality it's the net result of multiple deaths occurring between March the 23rd to April the 24th. The dates are hard to read, but each day is listed at the bottom of this bar graph. Now, I'm not suggesting there have been fewer deaths overall, by the way. I'm simply pointing out the lie that the large numbers published never happened over a 24-hour period. And what kind of people make up our mainstream media now? Where is their integrity? And now we know they're lying to us, why should we believe them about anything else ever again? I'm not a highly paid investigative journalist, but a few hours of research was all that was necessary to discover the extent to which we're being lied to. Yet with the honourable exception of Peter Hitchens, there seemed to be no investigative journalist left in England. And this gross exaggeration of the daily death rates is of critical importance when one considers that it's done only in order to cause fear, which then makes us more compliant with regard to losing our liberties. I cannot overemphasize how important this is, nor can I overemphasize how chilling this is. We are no longer a free country. When our entire establishment can blatantly lie to us about matters of supreme importance in an Orwellian manner which outside of fiction has only recently been seen in murderous communist regimes. Our establishment is not rewriting the past, as INGSOC, which was short for English Socialism, by the way, did in George Orwell's 1984. It's even worse than that. They're rewriting the present, slap bang in the face of either cretinously stupid journalists, cowardly journalists, paid off journalists, or most likely left-wing activist journalists who see no truth, hear no truth, and write no truth. We are being lied to. We are being terrorized by lies. And it really doesn't fill me with a tremendous sense of confidence about our future that it's me, rather than an elected politician or mainstream media journalist, who is detailing these lies of national importance, which have huge consequences for our day-to-day lives and freedoms. And one final thing that we should bear in mind in these troubling times, but never hear about from the establishment, is that your chance of being killed by COVID-19 is effectively zero, which is the nearest whole number to the fraction of 1% COVID-19 is encouraging to shuffle off this mortal coil.